In New Me Recovery and Wellness Centers, we focus on three core areas of your wellness: weight management, longevity, and performance. These areas are all influenced by key factors such as nutrition and supplementation, sleep, fitness activity, and stress management. To support your journey towards better health, we've partnered with some of the leading companies in these fields, providing you cutting edge tools designed to help you take control of your wellness. Today, we have two visionary leaders joining us from the True Brain. First is Burt Reynolds, Chief Innovations Officer and founder of the True Brain. Burt's journey is deeply personal, shaped by his grandmother's battle with dementia and his son's struggle with depression. Working his way through neurodiagnostics, he's built labs, led teams, and eventually founded the True Brain to answer a critical question: what if we could intervene in brain health before it becomes a crisis? Alongside him is Alexander Peebles, an executive leader with over 2 decades of transforming healthcare delivery. Alex believes the brain is the conductor of the human experience, and that understanding brain health means connecting it to sleep, pain management, trauma care, and beyond. Together, Bert and Alex are working to make brain health accessible, actionable, and integrated into every facet of care. Gentlemen, welcome. All right, guys, so welcome. And I appreciate you guys coming on today. So, really, what I wanted to talk about today is brain health as a whole, right? I want to talk about why EEG, QEEG, ERP scanning, why the brain scanning portion is important from an assessment perspective. And then I want to transition and talk about the therapy side afterwards and how we're leveraging neurofeedback training to really take a therapeutic approach to what the information that we're seeing from the brain scans are. So let's start with the scanning first. So if you could just kind of give us a background of the scanning, the technology, why it's important, and what we're looking for on the brain scanning cognitive screening.
So brain scanning has been something that's been around, I mean, just from the EEG side from almost 50 to 60 years. And it started out with clinical research and then it got into the hospital systems to monitor patients for seizures and neurodegenerative disorders. And then uh, recently, I think the last couple of years has been commercialized with, different headsets. But scanning of the brain from an ERP and QEG standpoint, the value of it is immense due to the population of U.S. Americans having over, I think, 70 million people, having around that many people having cognitive delays, cognitive decline, and then also just disorders that people don't know that they have. So the importance of bringing scanning to the masses is, I would say, outside of the clinical setting into the more clinic or wellness setting is important because it brings a balance to the community and to these people that they would not normally get this information unless they go to a neurologist, which going to neurology right now, it's a problem, right? So if you have a problem, if you have a headache or you have a seizure, that's when you see the neurologist. You're not seeing the doctor based on, I have some, a little bit of foggy brain or not feeling too hot. Neurology is right now just basically problem based. So us bringing this scanning outside of the clinic into the wellness centers or into facilities that have clients that want to understand their brain health is very important because it shows us the value of how this person's brain is performing. Over the years, I think we've tracked everything: our heart rate, our blood pressure, our body fat, but no one really tracks their brain health. And a lot of people just walking around with, they're burned out, they're anxious, unfocused, and can't sleep. And there's nothing really wrong with them that they're broken, but it's because their brain waves are out of balance. And this technology helps us see that, which in turn helps us give a better outcome to patient treatment.
Yeah, and that's a lot of reasons why we do a lot of the assessment testing that we do is we're trying to get more in that preventative space and really getting a proactive assessment on what our systems are doing, right? And being able to get ahead of potential issues that may be coming up or issues that are identified that we can try to apply treatments and therapy to.
Yeah, I wasn't as familiar with my background is not in neuro health or testing. And I found the test very fascinating because you put a cap on and you go through different exercises, right? For ERP, you go through sight and sound, and then problem solving. And then with neuromodulation, neuro feedback, QEEG, you go through eyes open, eyes closed. And I've never seen my brain function in that way, get in real time how your brain is actually functioning. A lot of times you don't really understand that the information you get from that really helps you learn to calm your brain down when you're going through stressful situations. So in normal life now, I have all these tools that I can use to kind of calm myself and recenter. So I think the testing will definitely help people that are curious about their life and how they deal with situations.
Yeah. So from client experience, obviously the testing procedure is non-invasive. It's a cap that you wear. We come in, we set you up, and we just run through a series of protocols. And as we're doing that, we are monitoring brain activity, right? So what are some of the expectations or what's some of the data that comes back from those scans from a client perspective that we can then work an analysis on?
Definitely. I think some of the things, neurofeedback itself and QEEG capture functionalities of the brain or those regions. And we're able to quantify that, whether it's attention, memory, and ERP itself looks at the measures those. So it measures your brain health, your memory, your attention. Also, if you have any biomarkers for dementia, Alzheimer's, ADHD, PTSD. So now the core benefits of all of these combined allows us to look at stress and anxiety, which some people don't realize the cognitive load their brain has. And so by using this technology, we can then help the patient calm their overactive stress response that they're having. We're able to look at their sleep patterns. Most people have, dysregulated sleep. So then with the therapy, we're able to regulate sleep patterns, and then improve sleep quality. Another problem I think we see is the focus side. Some people have a problem focusing. Some people have ADHD, ADD, or uh, just issues with dementia and also, I'm sorry, dementia. But depression, anxiety also causes cognitive decline or cognitive delay. And then we're able then to look at those regions of the brain and then again help with training it to boost attention, memory, and also reaction time. Then there's also the emotional side. The screens now, a lot of people looking through TikTok, they're looking at, they're constantly on the screens, whether it's computer or whether we're looking at social media. A lot of this is causing emotional dysregulation and also dopamine dysregulation, which unchecked or not recognized could lead to other things. Mood changes could lead to higher stress, higher anxiety. So by using quantitative EEG and then mapping the brain and then looking at these regions, we're able to find where those regions of the brain are emotionally dysregulated. And then we can then train the brain to reduce the overactivity in that brain, in the brain in that region, and then we can improve mood and control as well. Another thing we look at is trauma. A lot of trauma is carried in our body, it's carried in our brain, it's all over sometimes, but the brain holds a lot of it. Then that trauma response is then carried down to the body, and the body manifests it in different ways. It could be through mood, it could be through a person, shaking, it could be it's their sleep. So again, using QEEG to look at those regions of the brain that may hold that trauma, we're then able to help that person use their own brain waves to kind of rewire their brain through neuroplasticity. And this in turn helps the brain kind of unlearn those negative patterns and take those stress patterns out and then replace them with positive patterns, allowing that person to have better brain health.
Okay. And through the process, with the way that the systems are set up, we're able to take that information, that scanned information, and then there's specific protocols around neurofeedback training that are specifically tied to the areas of dysfunction that we're seeing from the scans themselves, correct?
Yes, definitely. I think one of the things that we don't we some things that we look at and don't look at is the real life examples of people that are going through some kind of dysregulation or cognitive decline. The clients we've seen so far, I mean, real life examples we have of a person coming in, they went from anxiety taking meds to be naturally calm. Athletes, they want to improve their reaction time or their focus, so you're able to do that. Professionals, lawyers, doctors, they use their brain constantly every single day, which over time, again, if they're not monitoring their brain health, will cause brain fog and cause other issues. We're able to look at that from a professional standpoint and help clear that out to decrease that fog and help recreate more focus and cognitive resilience. And then, from a parental side, there's a lot of kids with ADHD, ADD, other disorders, or they're just not focused. We're able then to work with those parents to help that child get that focus so they can be on the same page as the kids in their class and in turn have better grades as well.
Yeah. So with that, that's actually a good point that you bring up. So not only is it used to fix deficiencies in the system, but it can also be used as a measure for increasing performance. So if you take somebody that has a relatively healthy brain, right, and you want to increase performance, increase cognitive function, increase reaction time, you can then apply protocols in neurofeedback training to also not only just remediate, but also boost performance as well.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of football players, baseball players, soccer players. I mean, any sport, even not even that, even people who play cars, like it's another set, but their focus has to be so uh, dialed in that anything that creates noise, it causes them some dysregulation. So being able to pinpoint, let's say a football player is having some issues catching their ball or running and wants to increase their lap time. We can then look at the brain, create a baseline. Okay, here's where you are right now. And then over time with neurofeedback therapy and of course other therapies as well, increase that, measure it, and then quantify it. And then now say, hey, here's where you were 30 days ago, but now here's where you are, and this is why. So giving that to a client, I think is valuable because and any other time than that, they're not actually able to see what their brain function in. And it's kind of like guesstimating. It's
Mhm.
like when you have a car and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with it, seasoned mechanic can say, yeah, I think it's the alternator because I hear this and that. But ultimately, getting a diagnostic on your engine is getting a diagnostic on your brain. It's running your entire life. If you're able to see that information in real time and then add the therapies to it, it gives that patient valuable information to not only increase their cognitive health, but also maintain it. And then if anything occurs, they have a baseline to look at now that before they probably wouldn't.
Yep.
One of the things with sports you have to remember is that when you're on the biggest stage ever, like let's not go all the way to like a football game, um, in front of an arena full of people, you can get into your own head. I think we see it sometimes. We call it the yips, right? Where a player who normally catches a ball every single time you throw it to them will go through a rough patch where they drop everything, or a basketball player who misses shots. These kind of things will help you calm that noise down and it'll help you refocus. For weekend warriors like myself, I sometimes can't remember what number I'm on in a set because I'm thinking of 30 different things and I end up doing too few or too many, or I'm not sticking to the plan that I created for myself. So these things just help you block out for just a moment when you need to be focused, you know how to focus. And a lot of times we're so inundated with information. That's what Bert was talking about with the dopamine hits and all the things that when we really need to buckle down, it's really difficult for us. And so this really retrains your brain to tune out a lot of that noise.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things that we see, is that cognitive overload. We just there's so much stimulant, there's so many stressors in life, there's so many things that we're responsible for that we have to handle. It just overloads the whole entire system. And so the way, we try to position it is with some of that training, it's really like exercising your brain. It's no different than taking your body to the gym, right? It's doing
Right.
the same thing for the brain because you have to leverage the mechanics inside of the brain to get it to function and to get it to train properly, and it can be trained right through the use of neurofeedback training and things like that. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on, because we started talking about sports, is the importance of if you are an athlete, the importance of having a baseline scan in the event that you have an injury while you're playing athletics. So, if you're a football player, right, having a baseline scan to know when you're healthy where how that brain is functioning, and then if you incur an injury, a concussion, some sort of event, right, then we can rescan and be able to see where the impact of that is on the neurological system.
So that's 100% correct. We just did we just did a talk about this, and this is the fascinating part. Not only are you able to see the amount of damage, but you're able to do training to get back to playing faster. So a lot of the protocols that some of the sports teams have are very simple, right? Don't fall asleep for 2 hours, don't play sports for a week or 2 weeks, whatever. Now, instead of saying, I think I'm fine, I think I can go back to playing, and then getting re injured like the guy did in Miami, we can actually show you, hey, now you are back to as close to normal as you're going to be in this amount of time. You can go play again. And it's faster because we have the training in between the scans.
Yeah.
So you're right. Like everybody says with muscles and stuff, like working out, either use it or lose it, right? Everybody knows that, in terms of getting older, you want to have a certain amount of leg strength. But nobody ever says, hey, train your brain the same way you train your body if you want to get the same result that you got when you were younger. And that's the thing that people are forgetting. But in terms of sports, these are high functioning athletes. The stress doesn't bother them. Playing in front of fans doesn't bother them. The intensity of it doesn't bother them. Worrying about whether they're going to be on ESPN the next day doesn't bother them. But when they finally do get the yips and there's a problem, or they get a concussion, there's a problem, they're told you just work it out.
Hmm.
And that isn't the answer. The answer is retraining your brain to deal with the stress, the anxiety, and all the things that you're thinking so that you can let it go. And so that's one of my hot buttons. I wasn't an athlete. I was always too scared to be in front of that many people. So I respect so much what they're doing. But if I could have trained my brain to not have that fear factor involved, I probably would have been a much better athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, not only, and I come from the sports world as well, and coaching and as a player and everything else. And I've seen, we've done as best as we can up to this point with some of the return to play protocols and things like that. But unless you are actually assessing the system, it's so objective, right? You don't really know. You don't really know what is the brain. Is the brain healthy to be able to return to a level of competition like that and to be able to be subjected again to another potential injury? Because I do know the compounding effect that happens when your brain is not fully recovered and then you receive a similar injury. I mean, the recovery time is easily doubled in that, and sometimes it's not reversible.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
it's a lot easier to have the second concussion after you have the first one. And one of Bert's famous sayings is the third concussion is a TBI, right?
Mhm.
And so that becomes a big problem,
Yeah.
especially if you're not training your brain after that. I mean, think about it. You're having a TBI, it's almost like getting into a huge car accident, but you're not in a car accident. And so you think you're okay, but you're going to see the symptoms, and that can be scary for kids that don't end up going pro, that are trying to have a normal career, that are having issues with memory or patience or any type of function.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and
I want
concussions
to
are.
second what he said about, you know, the children that are playing sports now in high school or they're getting into college and they're not going pro, all those hits they've taken haven't been tracked, right? Most people have never seen their brainwaves before. So that's the reality we live in. Now, imagine if you're able to track your brainwaves from when you're 15 years old all the way till, you get older. If we catch any kind of dysregulation because of concussion or anxiety, depression, now we're able to proactively work with that patient to allow them to retrain their brain so they're not, let's say they don't go pro and they'd have 10 concussions. Well, now they're going to have mood issues. They're going to have issues with social life. They're going to have issues. Even some people have issues in the bedroom. I mean, it goes on and on. And then
Well,
let's take the sports out the way. What about women who have perimenopause?
Mhm.
They
right.
have cognitive issues as well. they're suffering, in silence. So one of Alex's famous lines is, "We're able to make the invisible visible." So now this patient has their brain waves in their hand, but they're able to see and quantify what they're feeling because now you can put it side by side. I didn't know why I was feeling that way. Well, here's why. I didn't know why I did this. Well, here's why. Okay, no, here's why, but here's what we're going to do to help you feel better, and then work with them not only through neurofeedback, but also coaching them the right way to use their operating system and then also brain health hygiene.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found fascinating in terms as I get older, my wife is getting older, my kids are getting older, so there's a whole lot of aging going on in my house, and we talk about perimenopause and menopause in the house now. And one of the things that I've realized is that to hear her describe it, I've never heard it described this way, but it's almost like being caught in a whirlwind where the emotions are circling around you. You're so busy, you're inundated with your phone. You can pay bills, you can do everything from your phone. So you're always going, but you're never present. This neurofeedback training helps slow that down. So the winds of change seem to slow a little bit, and you can refocus and not have the emotional dysregulation. And that has been helpful in my house. I don't know what everybody else does for their situation. I know there's vitamins you can take, and I know there's all kind of things. But this has been very helpful in my house in particular because we're able to slow down everybody's emotions and have normal conversations without all of the wins in this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why the brain health and the brain scanning and the therapies that go along with it are so important, and why it's one of our five main pillars, right? We look at the body as a whole through body composition. We look through cardiometabolic testing to see the metabolic system. We look at your blood chemistry for biomarkers. We're looking at DNA for, the blueprint and how your body's actually genetically put together. But the brain is the computer that runs the whole entire system. And so all of these pieces and parts all play a role in how our system functions, but a lot of that is regulated through our neurological system. So if we have dysregulation in those systems, it really can kind of lead to a lot of problems in a lot of different areas.
What I love about what you created is that you give your patients a lot of information, but with the testing before and the testing after for the cognitive, you get validation that it works, right? So there's a lot of gyms out there that you go to the gym every day, but if you look in the mirror and you don't see a change, you're just going, right? But you can learn so much from the information you're giving, but the test backs it up and is proof positive that, hey, what they're doing at Numi is really, really working. And here's how my brain has changed, which
Yeah.
gives validation to all of it. And I think that's really, really special.
Yeah. And
Right? One thing that's funny, Jason, is that when I be having this equipment and being in this space for a long time, I never scanned my brain. And then I finally did, and I realized I had dopamine dysregulation, right? My brain had inflammation, and that just set me back like, wow, like I'm here trying to help everybody else. What about me? And what about anybody? Like, let's not talk about sports. Just a normal person going to work 9 to 5, they've never seen their brain waves. They don't know what's going on in their brain. They just know they feel a certain way. And, oh, I feel a little better because I took this pill, but what really is going on? So we're not adding chemicals or we're not adding anything crazy. We're teaching the brain how to heal itself through the neurofeedback training.
yeah,
And then once you feel calm and your brain feels calm, then you feel different. So quantifying that to me is a value that we bring to clients and you bring to your clients as well. Is like, this is how you're feeling, but this is why. And
hmm,
here's what we're going to do X, Y, and Z to get you feeling better. And then once that patient's smiling because, hey, you know what? I felt like crap 4 weeks ago, but now I feel so much better. That to me is the best feeling because now you're giving somebody something that they've never really had before, which is a brain that's calm, relaxed, and they're able to actually enjoy life now. Because when you're in a state of constantly moving, majority, the numbers are crazy. 4% of people in the world suffer from some kind of mild cognitive impairment or dysregulation. Over 70 million Americans suffer from dopamine dysregulation and some kind of mild cognitive impairment. Staggering. And how many percentage of these people see in their brain? 6.9%
yeah,
out of 70 million,
yeah,
right? So I would love to scan 70 million brains, but the goal, the goal that, us doing is to bring brain health to the masses and allow people to have a chance to say, hey, here's who my brain is. Here's what I'm going to do to help myself, but I also have something to fall back on. Let's say you scan your brain this year and next year you fall. Well, guess what? We have a scan of your brain from the year before. So we actually have a baseline. We actually know where you're at. So when you say you have mood changes and you feel funny, we can actually go back now and take that information and help you get back to your actual baseline. And I think that's a valuable tool just in itself, being able to give that to a client.
Yeah, absolutely. And we already, do a lot of work in clinic with therapy as it relates to stimulating the nervous system, right? We do things like vagal nerve stimulation, we do vibroacoustic therapy, we do magnetic frequency stimulation. There's a lot of different modalities that we leverage to try to stimulate or regulate the nervous system and try to hit stimuli to the nervous system. And so we knew prior to brain scanning, we knew we were having that effect. We just could never actually quantify what that effect actually was. And then when we are able to now take somebody and pre-scan and post-scan and actually see what that impact is, that makes a validation to, hey, we're actually hitting the nervous system and targeting the nervous system where we want to. But the problem that we always had before was, and the problem that I think that there is with nerve stimulation is, it's one thing to stimulate the nerves and get them firing. It's another thing when you're talking about neuroregeneration and neuroplasticity and getting that link to stick, right? And I think the hypothesis is that if we take that stimuli, right, and we stimulate the nervous system, and then we apply a therapy like neurofeedback training on top of that, and we're actually working the brain, that I think is going to be the missing link that makes those connections stick.
I agree 100%. And I think now is the time now. There's so much going on in the world. A lot of people are feeling, there's a heightened emotion I feel in the world right now. This, with politics and sport, everything. And we're not paying attention to our operating systems. Our operating systems aren't operating at full capacity. And it shows. It shows up in our work, it shows up in our relationships, it shows up, in anything that we're doing, physically. Our peak performance is just not there because we're not looking at the brain.
Mhm.
And now that we have the technology that's been around for 50, 60 years, bringing this to an average client who just wants to understand, why do I feel so down when I'm doing this, or why am I not able to focus on that? Showing them that data, showing the other therapies around that, and then giving that to them in a package, it takes it to another level to me that our current system of healthcare is not really built to do that. But we're building something amazing that's going to allow these individuals to have access to their brain health and allow them to be in a position to better take care of themselves.
Yeah.
One another thing too is that health and conversations with families are one of the hardest things to have, right? So think about having this information for aging parents, or a wife that's going through menopause, or a child that's having trouble in school, or a child that just wants to get better at school, or an adult that just wants to get better at work. These things will give you insight to different parts of what you call your personality that you may want to change, or the people around you may want to change, but they've never been able to have the conversation with you before.
Mhm.
Now you've got your brain health in front of you, and like, I apologize. I've probably been snappy lately, but that's because I look at Instagram so much that I'm constantly looking for the next thing, and I'm not focused on the thing that we're doing or the discussion that we're having, or I'm not fully present with the kids. I think that as families start to have these kind of conversations about behavior and interaction, these kind of tests will help give you some insight into what other people are going through too, which is helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, and it's staggering to me too that, like, when you look at it at its most simplest form, right? If our car's not running right, we take it to the mechanic. If we're starting to get overweight, we go to the gym and we change our nutrition. We have all these checks and balances with all these things, but when it comes to our brain, we just are like, I don't know, I'm just off. I'm just feeling off. I'm just not,
Well,
you know?
there's two kinds of people though, if you think about it. Like there's movies made about this where everybody wants to have a pill that makes them immediately super duper smart or super duper focused. And that's fine. That's one way of looking at it. But there's now a growing amount of people in this country that don't want to take pills. They want to take nutrients and they want to take vitamins, but they don't want to take,
Medication.
pills.
Yeah.
And so this really gives them the ammunition and the training that they need to learn how to work out their brain. Just like they had to learn how to work out in the gym, they had to learn how to eat right. They had to learn how to watch their blood pressure. It's the same situation. It's just in your brain. But
Yeah.
people don't think like I will admit, Jason, don't tell anybody. But I didn't think when we started this journey that the brain could change. I just never crossed my mind. And I've been in healthcare for a long time, but people act based upon their experiences. I've said that to Bert a bunch of times. No, you can't change your brain. It's based on experience. I'm crazy because I went through crazy things. And he's like, no, your brain can change. Since I've been working here for a year and a half, I've been able to see how you can make adjustments into your brain, your patience level, your reaction to things, your focus. All these things can change. And when those things change, they change in everything you do in your life. So you can make your whole life the way you want it to by starting with your brain, your body, your health, and your awareness to what's around you. Sorry if that was.
Oh, no, no, and that's a really important point because it really does come down to that. The adaptability that our systems has. I talk about it all the time at the Wellness Center. Like, if you can put your body back to the as close to a homeostasis state as possible, it can do the things that it needs to do. And what's staggering to me is how accepting we've become of performance degradation. Like, as we are inundated with all these different things, we kind of forget what it's like to be actually operating at peak performance. The analogy that I use is the frog in the water pot, right? You put the frog in a boiling water pot, he's going to jump out. You put the frog in cold water and turn it up, he's going to boil and never even know the difference. And that's kind of what goes on with our health. We just get so acclimated to subpar performance that we just forget what it's like to be at peak performance. And so when you shift that back and you give somebody insight and you get them kind of some exposure to what it's like to be at peak performance again, it's a game changer. And it becomes so self-policing and self-regulating because now you start to go, oh, so this is what peak performance feels like compared to where I
Mhm.
was. I had no idea. I mean, I knew that I wasn't operating that great. I just didn't realize how far I was actually off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I respect that. That's I
Yeah.
was told in therapy that anxiety is like a 2.5 pound weight.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Somebody lays 2.5 pounds on your chest, you don't even notice at first. But after you do it every day for a year, it's 1,000 pounds on you.
Hmm.
And so now you can't breathe and you're wondering why. And you're trying to take off 2.5 pounds at a time and it doesn't work. You've got to shake the whole system up and get back to homeostasis, like you said, so that you can make those adjustments.
Yeah.
I think it's also I say using your brain power. And, I told both of you this when my son died last year, I could have sat in the grief and just sit there and just let it take over me. I had a choice to make though. Do I take this grief and let it sink in and sit there for a couple months trying to figure out myself? Or can I take it and use it as fuel to now push me where I need to go and use my brain the way I need to? And I chose the latter of using it as fuel. So I use my grief to help myself feel better. I push myself. I use my natural brainwave patterns to allow me to create that neuroplasticity to allow the positive feedback to come in, using that as, what, my son's not here, but because he's not here, I need to do these things, right?
Hmm.
And it's a shift. It's a mind shift. It's allowing yourself to be okay with not being okay.
Hmm.
And we don't all know what our normal is. Just really think about it. What is your normal? How does anyone know what their normal is? we don't know what that is because we never really scanned our brain from when we were a baby to see what our normal is. Because that's the only way you can go back. I think it's forgot what age it is, between 7 and 8 is where you can see where part of your brain is going to be normal, right?
Yeah.
And then now I'm 47. I don't know what my normal is. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. So I do want to feel peak performance, but what is that for me?
Hmm.
And so that's the question the clients come in like, I don't know what my peak performance is. I don't know what my normal is. Can you help me with that? And so we're able to give that person what their normal is, whatever that may be, to some extent, and then allow them to experience what peak performance is based off what their life is right now.
Yeah.
And so, from experience, I say that being able to retrain your brain, being able to see what's going on with your brain and being proactive about it, it gives us a heads up because now I can check my brain 3 or 4 times a year. I may have had started a new medication. I maybe started, I had an infection and don't know what's happening with me. We have again that baseline and we can track and measure and then optimize over time and keep your brain healthy. Be proactive about cognitive health, be proactive with cognitive decline because at some point our brain is going to decline,
Hmm.
but we can then preserve that. So having the ability to do that and being able again to give that to clients and patients is amazing. And I think again, if everyone would step back and just breathe for a second and say, hey, I don't know what my brain is doing. I don't know what's going on. I'm taking all these pills, but what is it doing to me?
Hmm.
Those are the questions that we can answer, and we just love being able to help clients see what their brain is doing, and how we can better optimize it.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you. This is one of those projects that I am very excited for. Things just come together for reasons we don't always understand. And this is a partnership that I'm very excited for. And I look forward to seeing how we give more access to people to be able to understand their systems as a whole and really be able to start to heal or to increase their performance.
Yeah, we're excited too. We're very glad to have met you, and we support all the and all the time. So thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.